Now we come to the end of this felicitation, and we'll have this scientific program. To chair this scientific program, I request Dr. Tara to be the chairperson, and the speaker, Dr. Deepika Suri. She is IPS from Bhopal, and she is talking on cyber security. Before starting this lecture, I request Madam to bless them with the memento. Dr. Tara, please.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. I'll come and pick it up from your house tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. God bless you. That lady, she come here.
Deepika Suri, Madam, you kindly accept the blessings of
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
So, Dr. Ramakrishnan, can we go ahead? Dr. Ramakrishnan?
I have to introduce you before that.
yes, madam.
So it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome our guest speaker for this evening, Ms. Deepika Suri, a very smart lady, as all of you have seen her now. She's IPS 1999, and she's from the Madhya Pradesh cadre. Ms. Suri has worked as Superintendent of Police. She's worked with the CBI and also in the Cabinet Secretariat. And she is now the IG of crime against women in Bhopal. She has been interested in cyber policies and trafficking of women. These are her special interests. And she has got a lot of awards, all of which I cannot name, but starting from national to international awards. Ms. Suri, it's indeed a great privilege to have you with us. See, we are all mental health professionals. We deal with the other end of the spectrum. That is, we see women who have become victims of bullying and what are the mental health issues they have. But it is nice to see you up on the other side trying to fight this out and being extremely proactive. And just as an introduction to the topic, this is an extremely so-called fancy topic now, more fancy because more and more of us are hooked onto the net. And this cyber crime can take many, many forms, as you know. It can be stalking, it can be defamation, it can be bullying, it can be pornography, it can be phishing, it can be trolling. I have learned all these words only the last few years, let me tell you. My vocabulary has increased because of all this cyber crime, I think. Anyway, we know that all this is going on, but we also know from newspapers and from some research that has been done in the country that the cyber crimes against women particularly is going up, has gone up markedly in the last 2 years. And just for the sake of mental health professionals, my colleagues, we have found a strong association between cyberbullying and depression. There are very many studies in India and abroad which have found this association, and cyberbullying even from a young age. You know, and then of course there has also been a lot of reports on anxiety, a sense of hopelessness, helplessness, and some of the women particularly who have been victims of cyberbullying have complained of headaches and somatic symptoms, which all of us know are somatization problems in depression and anxiety. A lot of them have expressed suicidal ideas. In fact, recently, in the last year or two, we have had reports of women killing themselves because of the same pornography and cyberbullying and all that, which is, I think, extremely sad. This is a flip side of technology, you know. I mean, everything has a flip side to it. But it is sad that women often are at the receiving end of all this. And this is something that I think we have to fight for, tomorrow being our special day. But really, Ms. Suri, what concerns me is, just like domestic violence, many of our women don't report domestic violence, even if it is there, right? So similarly, I do understand that many women who are harassed do not report it. So we really have to find out why they don't report. And even if they do want to report, many of them may not know how exactly to go about it. So I think a lot of education has to be given to all of us. In fact, even I may not know how to report and where to go and report. You know, so I think we need to be educated as to how we go about reporting to the authorities, and what will the authorities do? Will it just be one of those many things that they just listen and not do much about, you know? So I'm sure you will enlighten us all about this, and I do look forward to your talk. And I hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's been, I think what I've really enjoyed is because I joined I hope I'm audible. I think I am. So it's wonderful that I've been part of this group since 7 o'clock today. And I especially enjoyed everybody talking about Dr. Sarda Menon. It's amazing to see her with her energy. And I think what's very, very special is what really comes out is her compassion. I think the fact that she was a pioneer in her field, or is a pioneer in her field, and because of that compassion, because of that dedication, she's also helped found institutions. I'm an outsider, but I was really hooked on to the screen. So I've really enjoyed it. So thank you for involving me in this program. I thank the Indian Psychiatric Society for having, and all the members here. And it's a privilege to be here. I'll share my screen.
Video close.
Madam, unmute.
Please, so like you mentioned that a lot of our patients, we have, I would say, common victims, because if on one hand we have a victim, whether a person comes in for sexual harassment, comes as a victim for cyberbullying or any other kind of crime. So there are people who are in need of both kind of rehabilitative techniques, and increasingly so we have seen that we have now procedures in place. Like if there are children who are victims, so luckily we have the Child Welfare Committee, and now the new protection of children against sexual offenses, like the POCSO Act, ensures that there are certain support persons. So we also try to ensure that when we have cases where especially children are victims of sexual assault, so we try to get a support person involved, and especially a person who will be involved in counseling. But it's very difficult, I guess, to find trained psychologists. That's one thing that we feel, but it's amazing to be here. I'll just try to share my screen so that we can, I would just take 1 minute. Just trying to see okay, just one moment. Okay. So when I was, obviously there was a request that I talk about cyberspace, but also there was also a request that a little bit is also talked about workspace. While in terms of when we deal with COVID, we can talk about being one issue about being cyber, COVID was to keep social distance. But but during the times of COVID, we have also become increasingly involved as far as our what do you call, our association with the net is concerned. I would like to start by just ensuring that when we talk about safety, I want to emphasize that it's not the issue of individual safety. What we should be concerned about is actually creating or architecting a system where people are safe. So I would like to emphasize that by giving an example, that we launched a campaign here in Madhya Pradesh, and that was called Samman. And the three things that when we talked about safety and we talked about how to improve actually ensure that society is also and has a voice and is a proactive participant in this. I will just mention how. Second was we thought about that the likely perpetrator should be targeted, and then the other thing is about safety. So if I give an example, that these are the kind of posters that we came up with, where we said we when it's talking about that we try to create an alternative, because when we even talk about cyber crime, we talk about issues at workplace, there are three things. Like I would like to emphasize that first of all, of course, we're talking about women. They should be careful, they should not be gullible. But while we are talking about all this, we can only create safe environments when we also have that we don't just keep addressing women, we also address men. We also, and the third point is that we also, like when I talk about involving the society, we also think about that the bystander should be empowered. So in case at workplace we see some kind of a harassment, of course we have the issue of internal complaints committees that have been formed. But what is also important, that we should ask the bystander to be involved. Like how would I say that, that if you look over the internet also, they will talk about a lot of strategies. So if you feel that at workplace there is a certain female who's being exploited or by harassed by a senior, then they say there are different techniques. Either you go to the lady, you ask her, can we support you? Second is that you what do you call tell her the resources that are there. You can tell her that there is an internal complaints committee. You can tell her that there is the Thana. You can tell her that you would be willing to give evidence in her support. The next is that you talk about that you try to disrupt it. Every time you see that a person is being called constantly to the senior, you go inside with another file and you say, or if you're very sure about it, you go and say that this is wrong. So that is why when we had our campaign, we tried to say that we try to emphasize, or we try to focus not just at women, but if you have to create safe places in organizations and safe places in on cyberspace, one has also to target the likely perpetrator, and you have to call an offense an offense. Lots of times street harassment is not considered to be an offense. It is considered that it's a frivolous thing. It is something that all boys indulge in. It may be considered to be a sport, but it's very important to say ki ye aparadh hai. It's very important to call it a crime. And that is why we had posters around it. And what we also did was that we had an Asli Hero campaign. So we tried to honor those people who had played an active role in helping or supporting the victim of crime. So here also, if one says that Nari ka Samman, Asli Hero ki Pehchan. So we had a large number of slogans around it. And the reason I'm talking about it that is because I want to emphasize that these are like here, we have the auto drivers who are taking oaths to take care of women's safety. We reached out to women also. Whenever we talk about safety, whether it be in workplace or it be in cyberspace, it is not only important to empower the women, it is not only important to tell them the resources they have, but to make workplaces secure and safe. It is also very important that we tell society that they cannot be mute spectators where they see offenses happening, because today it may be happening to the other person, tomorrow it can be us. So one has to, the bystander has not only has, like I'm trying to emphasize, not only has the person to be empowered, not only has the victim to be empowered, but even the bystander has not to stand confused, but has to be empowered. And then the likely perpetrator has also to be told that it is a crime, it is not right, and that he should drop those actions. So in times, now coming back to the main issue that we were to talk about, that is COVID and cyberspace. we see that in COVID times, we are increasingly, so even if we kind of were not on the digital space so much involved with it, but a requirement of these times have been that there are increased webinars. I'm sure in your profession and in a large number of professions, there is telemedicine consultations. There are Zoom classes, there are payments, purchases, banking, everything has gone online and we are increasingly using it. And entertainment has also become, a large part of it has become online. Now, while everything has become online, the threats have also increased. So we are talking about cyber vulnerability, which has increased. There are, as far as doctors are concerned or the medical profession are concerned, there may be, like in terms of telemedicine, there may be patients who may register with different ID numbers, people who have applications that provide for monthly subscriptions, under the pretext of consultation, there may be a large number of vulgar gestures and conversations that may take place. And while we may end up blocking them, and like I was told, and that is true, that a lot of us may not know where to lodge the complaints. But what I would like to emphasize is that that even if we, because that is something I will deal with as I go on ahead, that before you block a person who's been involved in activities like this, it is also important to take the screenshot. It is very important to, like, if a person is a victim of being trolled, if a person is a victim of cyber stalking, it is very important to take a screenshot. You may block the person, but before you block the person, it is important to take a screenshot. As far as where all to report, there are in a large number of places, there are cyber thanas, there are local thanas, there is national helpline number, and there are also national portals where we can report. I will be giving some of those resources as we go ahead. So, but what I'm saying, it is also important in terms of cyber stalking, it is always better to let the other person know that that particular action is resented. So, and then to take screenshots if there have been messages that have been given which one has not liked, to keep evidence of that. If there is some kind of recording that one can have, to keep evidence of that, because all of that becomes important as we go on and we in registering a case and going ahead. And like the question that it is true that a large number of girls, women, while they do not talk about domestic violence, they also do not come forward. Like, one reason may definitely be where to go. The other may be a little bit of suspicion about police, maybe suspicion about the capability, whether they'll be able to deal with it. And I would admit that there are a large number of issues that come up in terms of attribution, but there are fixing responsibility, but there are resources, there are investigative means to get onto that. So I would encourage more and more people to come ahead and not to think about, because there is if I also see and if I try to assess my experience, that what are the major kind of crimes that we kind of deal with, because I'm not dealing specifically with cyber crime, but crimes against women. So the kind of cases that come forward are where women come and report that somewhere where they have been in a relationship and there was consent involved, but now their videos have been made and there is threat to continue the relationship under threat of making the videos viral. So that is something, a kind of a revenge, what one would call revenge porn, that is there. Then a lot of people befriend other people over internet, and then they go ahead with the relationship and they get entrapped with people whose credentials they do not know very well. So there are issues that need to be so these are the major kind of crimes. Obviously there are times when the photographs are morphed. There are issues like of hate messages that are there. So but before, like I said, before one changes, it is important to follow some of the cyber hygiene practices. Like all doctors would know that before one gets into that, hygiene is something that you don't have to it is not something done de novo. It's something like that is supposed to become part of our orientation. Similarly, children nowadays and grown-ups, because they say that it is easier for the children to pick up because they're digital natives. And we people who have got onto the internet or computers relatively late in our life, we are more like digital immigrants. So it is much more difficult for us, but it is very important to learn those cyber hygiene practices, like of having very strong passwords, of having two-factor authentication, like where even for our bank accounts, we try to ensure that you have OTP that is there, and the passwords are changed. Not only do we try to ensure that there is that there is strong password also for the router, and we keep changing. So there are a large, and that antivirus is properly installed. So there are factors that one has to take care of. So there are issues also which come up where people say that speakers were harassed while webinars are there, speaker being harassed by the audience or scribbling on slides. And in the medical profession, there have also been cases where companies have been affected. Like the medical record is considered to be extremely important and extremely confidential. And there have been issues of attack on those. And a large number of these records are also found on the dark web, and they're sold for a certain cost. And there are also data breaches. So while a large amount of our data is getting on the net, we have also to ensure that there is confidentiality of data that is ensured. So there are, while we will be talking about a large number of other kind of issues, then there is harassment, ransomware, security of patient records, phishing attacks, and also insider threats that one has to take care of. One issue that I would really like to emphasize is that I'm dealing here with all the psychiatrists, so or talking to, addressing and participants who are largely psychiatrists. I would say that so I don't think this needs to be emphasized here, but generally what one would always like to say is that whenever because we're dealing with victims, so it is very important that no victim should ever be blamed. And the victim, like if we also have people who come in with a problem, they it is very that in policing sometimes we are akin, or we are given to sometimes using a little bit of a rough behavior. So that should not happen. While we should not blame the victim, that maybe it was they who had posted private information, they had not taken not done due diligence, maybe they were in a relationship earlier. So what one would really like to emphasize is that there can be three kind of situations. There can be a situation where we are the victim ourselves. There is a situation where we know somebody who is a victim. And third situation can be that where we are a perpetrator, or we are supporting a perpetrator. So or know a perpetrator. So it is very important in all these issues that first never to blame a victim, whatever the situation, and to offer as much of psychological, emotional solidarity, and also give a knowledge about the resources that we can, and obviously not to be a perpetrator. And like I said, it's very important that if we know a person who's been a victim, it is very important to have a strong bystander protocol of being positively involved in ensuring that not only do we offer help to the perpetrator, the victim, but also make it known to the perpetrator that it's not something that is good, and obviously to be aware of the various crimes that are there and how to follow hygienic, safe practices in the digital space, to be aware of various cyber threats that are there, to know our legal resources, and to be brave even if we are the affected party. So one should not even get into a self-blame kind of a situation. The issues with digital crime are that, like I would like to give some examples. There was a certain case where rape videos were made viral. So these were uploaded. Now the problem with the digital space is that while in any other kind of crime, this is one incident and it's forgotten. But digital space being what one would say is digital footprint being permanent, it is basically that the person is victimized and re-victimized because like they saw in terms of um, survivors or the people who had been affected by their photos being uploaded. The issue that happens is that even if we block those sites, we are not sure that that particular content may have been downloaded by people. The URL would have been changed. So there is no way we cannot get onto all the systems and remove the data. So a lot of studies were done where they said that a person who is a victim of such kind of crime will always keep thinking, even if they go to the market, they'll feel that everybody's seen my video, and they will continue to be embarrassed. So I guess I'm talking to an audience who can play an important role in terms of being extremely good counselors, because like Dr. Tara said, that if you are a victim of cybercrime, one can really go into deep depression. One can, more than any other crime, I guess this requires a very specialized kind of intervention and a very specialized kind of psychological intervention where the victim of crime can also be helped. The issue is that the person who commits this crime needn't be face to face with us. He or she can be a perpetrator from any part of the world. Attribution does become difficult because even if I'm sitting behind this if this computer has been used, which I'm using right now, it's difficult to sometimes say that I was the person behind the computer. So attribution is a little difficult. And the fact that digital footprint is permanent, the fact that I said that if there are videos, we can block the site, but we cannot ensure that it has not been downloaded and it is not being viewed by other people. So there are issues that are here. And there is also that this kind of harassment can be across various platforms. You can have it over YouTube, you can have it over Facebook, you can have it over SMS, you can have it over WhatsApp. So it may not just be just one platform that is being used, but and then it can also be seamlessly into your physical world and your cyber world. The same person may be harassing you in the physical world and also complicating it by harassing or even on the cyber world. Prajwala, which I'm talking about, is where this is an organization down south in Hyderabad, which took up the case of these rape videos being viral. And that is what it leads to, de-victimization of the victim. And there is obviously some people may be more disprivileged. Then it may also affect women and people who are more visible and more vocal, politicians, artists, journalists, activists, and definitely the degree of trauma and the shame that is involved may be much greater because things like the coronavirus, I think there is possibility of anything here on the net getting viral geometrically. So the broad spectrum of various crimes that can be there, and I'll rush through this because I know it is 8:43, and I would like to talk more about how to what to do if one is a victim. So I'll just skim over this. So they can be hate speech, they can be online sexual harassment, they can be cyber stalking, there is cyber pornography, defamation, morphing, trolling, gender bullying, online grooming, privacy infringement, and online sexual offenses. And there is, I think I would, and the three major acts, like one would like to know that what are the penal sections that are used. So we have an important act that for which we call our mother law for most of the offenses is the Indian Penal Code. So large sections of our Indian Penal Code, because obviously when the Indian Penal Code was made in 1861, we did not have the cyberspace to deal with. But now we have, there have been amendments after the Nirbhay case in 2013. So we have sections where online stalking or taking photographs or voyeurism, where photographs are captured, taken, transmitted over cyberspace, being also an offense. So cyber stalking, take a voyeurism. Then one can also use the other sections like obscene content, so or having lewd comments. So those traditional sections of law can also be used, and there is also new sections that have been added to the Indian Penal Code. Besides this, we have the IT Act. So largely those that deal with cybercrime, especially related to women, are section 66 and 67, which talk about one can deal with issues of making video viral here, where again it is like capturing the content or taking photographs, even capturing. So even it is not just transmitting, but even capturing obscene content is a crime, and transmitting it also is a crime. Also intruding into somebody else's computer system is a crime. So one has IPC, one has IT Act, and the third major act where it can be a crime or it is a crime is the POCSO. So if especially a child is a person who's involved in cybercrime, is the victim of cybercrime, then we have very strong sections of law, especially in cyber. It is section 11, 12, 13. And I would like to emphasize here that while viewing of pornography is not an offense, but transmitting, publishing of pornography is an offense. And on the other hand, any kind of child pornography is an offense. So, online sexual abuse is one. There are cases where successful prosecution has taken place of cyber porn cases. Revenge porn is because the word revenge porn is something like, just like we say that eve teasing is not a good word, it doesn't appropriately deal with the harassment that takes place, and it should be called street harassment. Similarly, revenge porn, where one has been in a relationship and then the photographs or the video is used. So the better terminology is image-based sexual assault and not revenge porn. Then if one is the victim, like I said, what is very important is first to take a screenshot to first of all, if it's a case of stalking where a person is being trolled over different media, it is very important to make the other person known that it is that kind of interaction is not welcome, because stalking becomes a crime only when when the other person doesn't welcome it. So it is very important to mention that, and then also to keep a lot of evidence. After that, to block the person. Third, there is a possibility of, in all these forums, like whether it's Google or it's Snapchat, there are places where one can report the person themselves. They don't have to even go to a police station. They can report and they can ask for the removal of unwanted and explicit personal images. So that can be done at Google, it can be done at Snapchat, it can be done in YouTube, it can be done in Instagram. So all these forums, they provide for places to report. I don't think I want to get into all these details because I think we have less time. Just to mull over this, I know a lot of people would know that morphing, where pictures of one person are used or they are tampered with to make them obscene, or you edit the original picture, that is morphing. Trolling is there, phishing attacks are there. So one of the important hygiene practices is also not to share, not to click on any link in email and on SMS. and to be extremely, and especially if it is from a dubious person. But because there are also ways where, so it is better to always confirm with the person involved if a certain link has been there, whether that person really sent it. And even when we go to various sites, to ensure that not to what you call make transactions and payment over sites one doesn't know. And the way one can also check whether a certain site is secure or not, it will give HTTPS. So S, if it is S, then it is more, it is secure. And if it's only HTTP, then that means it is not secure. So one has to be careful on those aspects also. Um, so like I said, that it is important to also, one of the important cyber hygiene practices is also to have privacy settings. If one is using the social media, like my daughter today, when I told her I was going to talk about it, she said, you're a generation which actually discourages people from using internet, but you should not do that. She said, I get all my information from this. I'm involved so you should not discourage people. So my intent is definitely not to discourage, but just to say that even if we are where we are on social network, I guess because she's 16 and I discourage her to get on social media as yet. But while one is on social media, to ensure that there are strong privacy settings that are there. Even if one is using a mobile, to make sure that it does not give out our location all the time. If right now, of course, I'm talking here, but if the camera is not required, then even on the laptop, we can actually put a tape over the camera. So there are various ways to protect ourselves on the net. So there are obviously a large number of cases of offenses against children, and we have to be very careful about that, whether it is online grooming or a large amount of child sexual abuse material is there on the net. And there are also cases that come to us where there is report of live streaming of child sexual offense, and people may be asked to play out a certain act. And another issue is that during these times of COVID, these issues have also gone up of child pornography. So one has to take care of that. And the impact, like Dr. Tara said, is on a large number of issues. That you have mental health of victims, that is important. It is the economic impact, the social impact. A large number of times people do not come forward and do not want to take recourse to the legal process, thinking of it to be long drawn. That may be stopping them, and obviously it affects them in a large number of ways. I've mentioned the penal sections, where it is, like I said, the Indian Penal Code, the IT Act, POCSO, like I said, is these are the important acts that are there. And obviously there are challenges that police also faces in terms of encryption. There are a large people might try to do this by anonymizing their identity. Then this always also involves in a large number of issues foreign jurisdictions. Then also a large number of these service providers or platforms are based abroad. So that itself has is the fraught with challenges. Like I said, it is very important to have strong cyber hygiene practices, like using firewalls, updating software regularly, having strong passwords, device encryption, taking backup to keep one's hard drive clean, and not to download suspicious applications even on the what do you call it, on the store. Obviously, Apple has stronger policies of various apps, but in on other platforms, the anything, digital footprint being permanent, one should never post anything which one would not like one's grandmother which would not be appreciated by one's grandmother. And while I found this very interesting, it says, be yourself, but be your best self. So one needn't put anything, or one needn't be tempted to put anything on the net which would which one might regret later. So even if these are emotional outbursts, or they are feelings that are there, so one needs to be careful about that. We should also be like smart about the sites we visit, the emails we open, and the links we click. And we should, because in a large number of cases, it is also what we post ourselves which comes back to haunt us. So we should think before we post. I think most of this is what I've already covered. So on social networking sites, it is best to be nice to people. And whether it is about what sharing we have, what sharing we do, what privacy policy we have about passwords and protecting our computer. And incidentally, there are, when it comes to children, one has also to be sure that when we have online games, there are a large number of these games where people can talk to each other. So there are chat rooms that are there. So these also become the new forums of vulnerability for children. So we have to be very sure as to what they're using. And it is important to report abuse and not to just take it lying down. And like I said, that what happens in a large number of cases is the victim or the person will feel guilty themselves. So it is very important to be guiltless and to be brave, and to give a written warning to the contact that whatever has been stated that is unwanted, to take down evidence, to block the harasser. Like I said, save and print screenshots, emails, text messages, and report incidents. And there are it was asked, where all can we report? We can report to even our local thanas. They needn't be cyber thanas, but we can report there. In various cities and states, there is provision for cyber thanas. There is online report. There is this helpline number is throughout the country. So 155260. So one can report on this helpline number. And there's also a national cybercrime reporting portal, which I've just mentioned here, www.cybercrime.gov.in. So one can report at these many places. And like I was just showing this national cybercrime reporting portal. And one thing like I would really like to re-emphasize is that it's not a victim's fault, and to offer as much of support to the victim as possible. There are also a large number of women apps in the state. In various states, there are various apps. So one can download those also. And that's about it. I think that's what I had to say. If there is any question, I could take it.
Well, thanks a lot, Ms. Suri. That was a great session indeed. Actually, I think this needs a kind of workshop, you know. I mean, there's so much of stuff here, and I'm sure a lot of people have various perspectives. We need at least a half-day workshop in order to do justice to this. Maybe Dr. Ramakrishnan can organize one in the near future. Having said that, there are a couple of questions. I know there's not much time, but just one of them is that even if you block them, people change they assume a new ID and then they keep talking to you, and what can be done in such a case? That is one question. And the other one is, I think, more for psychiatrists, where it's the question is that during the course of a session, quite often the woman confides in us, but she does not want to complain, or maybe she doesn't have the knowledge or whatever to complain. But as a therapist, can we do that? My personal opinion is we can't, because it is all confidential information and we can't really do that. And it is not really life-threatening in that case. You can complain only if it's life-threatening. But I would like to hear your perspective as well.
Yes. I think the very fact that you're hearing her out, I think that maybe helping her some bit, but I think she can be encouraged. I'm sure from what I understand as the job of psychologists, it's basically you have to empower the other person. The person has to speak and they have to take decisions on their own. So obviously that agency should be left to the person. But I know also that if one does not take any action, that one might end up feeling a little powerless. So maybe the person, I don't know how it is done in psychiatry, but the person can be guided a little that maybe they have approached you, but they can also try approaching a thana, and it is not all that bad. Even in the state, we have large number of what do you call institutions that we are developing. Even a very recent thing is that we want to set up mahila desks that are there. So where confidentially in only those areas of the thanas one will be heard. And obviously the other issue that you talked about, that a person may, you block that person out, that person will get on to you through different ways, and not only, like I said, on the cyber space, but also the physical space. So it is very important to report, because it's a matter of great concern in terms of security of the person. So I think there should be that encouragement, and I think there's no easy solution. As police, we have also to win the confidence of our victims. We have also to ensure through our action that we are prompt and that we are there to help them out. But I guess the victim has also, unless and until the victim, there is no sense of closure, I guess, if the person feels that the person has not spoken out and has not taken action. So that may be an issue where the person may be encouraged.
Yeah, so finally, I want to tell you that there have been a lot of people appreciating your talk and saying how timely it is, and therefore, but my request is, I think you and your departments, whether it's a CBI or wherever it is, you need to increase awareness among the general public.
Yes.
Because I still think awareness is a little low, and as you said, all of us have a lot of doubts, and it's only constantly talking to the press and constant source of information, feeding information like this, that really helps a lot of people. And it should also get into the vernacular press, into the regional press. I think that is extremely important. And finally, before I close, I just want to say I never would have thought that you are the mother of a 16-year-old. You look very, very young. So that's very nice. And thank you again. Thanks on behalf of all of us. Thank you very much, Mr. Suri.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Dr. Tara and Dr. Mrs. Suri. My one request, my question will be, how many cases do you tackle and give result? What is the percentage of people applying to you for relief, and how much you are able to deliver them the result?
Okay, that's actually a very difficult question, because right now I'm dealing with basically crimes against women and not cyber crimes specifically, which is a very different vertical that's dealing with it. But
Generally.
yeah, but generally, I do think that at least relief, I feel my general view is that at least in 70% of the cases, we are able to provide relief.
Oh, that is great number, madam, because people don't hesitate to go to police because they don't get relief. If 70% you are able to give solution, means that is a great thing, and people will reach you. That is because mostly women know who are the people who are the targets. So they can be boldly going and reporting to the number you told, 155, that number. We can access to that number and we can complain. That is the one take home message, that 70% of the people are getting the relief. That is a great thing, madam. Thank you so much for giving this wonderful lecture. As Dr. Tara madam told, we will have a one-day workshop on that. That is a much needed one. And we will seek your help for that also, madam, in the future. Thank you, madam. Now I request Dr. Smita to give the vote of thanks.
Good evening, all. All good things must come to an end. So is today's evening. So I'm so happy and grateful to Sharadam ma'am and her family for being kind enough to spend this evening with us. We are so mesmerized by your the history of your life, the charisma, everything. So I thank a lot from the depth of my heart. I thank a lot Chardam and her family for agreeing to be with us today. I also thank the other stars of today's evening, Deepika Suri ma'am and Tara ma'am, for the wonderful session. Madam Deepika ma'am, it was so informative, and definitely we will be planning and contacting you for a workshop soon. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank all the eminent personalities of IPS who are here today with us. Dr. Sapita ma'am, Jayantini ma'am, and Doctors Gautam Saha sir, NN Raju sir, Prasad Rao sir, and everybody who were with us and blessed this program and made the International Women's Day celebration by Samanvi, the Women Empowerment Committee of Indian Psychiatric Society, a grand success. Thank you so much. And I also, would like to thank our EC and our President, Dr. Ramakrishnan, our Suresh Kumar sir, Ramana Narat sir, and all the members of IPS South Zone EC for helping us and being our support for conducting this program. And also, I would like to thank all the members of Samanvi, our chairperson, Dr. Radhika Reddy, Indumadi, who was the backbone of this program, and Nivedita and Preeti for all the help and support. And I thank each and every one of the audience here. Thank you so much, and wish you all a wonderful International Women's Day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, one and all. Thank you, Samanvi.